All right, in 15.2, we're going to talk about some of the chemical and physical barriers of the innate immune system. The first and one of the most important innate immune barriers is your skin. Your skin, not only does it keep you from drying out, right? Keeps things out of you. So it has several layers. On the outside is tough keratin. This kind of is a protective shield. And there are other substances. We have sebum. This is kind of an oily substance that covers and protects the skin. It helps keep microbes out. And actually, it has a slightly acidic pH to it, which inhibits a lot of bacterial growth. There are also a large number of microbes that naturally live on our skin. That is actually a good thing because they compete with other invading pathogens for space. So we have things like Staphylococcus epidermidis, which naturally lives on our skin. That's going to compete with all the other microbes that come along from the environment and try to colonize us. So that is a good thing. Our microbiome helps protect us. And finally, our skin is constantly being shed and renewed. So removing those layers physically removes microbes from our skin. Of course, things have to get into our body. This interface here is called the mucous membrane. That's where things come and go, right? So our whole intestinal tract, gastrointestinal tract, is one big mucous membrane. There is so much mucous membrane in you, I think it would cover a NBA basketball court, I believe, is the surface area of it. So there is tons of mucous membrane in us. Obviously, we need a barrier to allow some things in but keep pathogens out. And that is where the mucous membrane comes in. It's selectively permeable for nutrients and waste, but it has mucus on it, which coats the surface. This can trap microbes. It also secretes enzymes like lysozyme, which can break down microbes, and has specific cells that respond to what we call microbial associated molecular patterns, or MAMPS. So what are these? These are basically shapes that microbial molecules make. Things like peptidoglycan and lipopolysaccharide. Those are MAMPs, right? Peptidoglycan and lipopolysaccharide, unique to bacteria. Those are microbial associated molecular patterns, and there are cells that recognize these, like in our intestines. There are regions called the Peyer's patches, which are a specific type of lymphoid cell on the intestinal surface, including these M cells. These are really important in sampling what kind of microbes are in the intestinal space. And they'll actually take them in and phagocytose them and send them to macrophages so that our body is constantly sampling what microbes are in our gut. You will notice, though, these MAMPs and these cells, they are not specific, right? Peptidoglycan, all gram-positives make lots of that. Lipopolysaccharide, all gram-negatives make lots of that. So they're very generic things. It doesn't recognize a specific species or a specific strain here. Most of our cells in the skin and the mucous membrane, they have a special type of junction between the cells. These are called tight junctions, which actually make them watertight. This forces all water and nutrients and things to go through the cell itself, and it kind of acts like a filter. The cell can filter out all the nasty microbes that might be coming through. So this interlocking of the cells makes us very impenetrable, basically. That's why when you have a cut in your skin, you can easily get an infection because microbes can slip past our defenses then. Our lungs are another major place where we need physical barriers. Not only do we have the mucous membrane in there with all those things that we talked about, but a lot of our airway is lined with tiny little cilia. So we talked about cilia previously. We have some microbes that can move around by them. Our cilia are really important in catching particles, including dust, debris, and microbes. And we have some responses to clear those things out of our respiratory system. Sneezing is one. It forcefully expels air to get all that stuff out of the lungs and out of the respiratory tract, so it physically forces it out. We also have what's called the mucociliary elevator, which this little cilia beat and beat and beat to lift things out of your lungs. That comes up as that nasty sputumy phlegm stuff that people hawk up, right? So that is being brought up by these little cilia that work together. If an organism makes it down into the lungs, to the alveoli cells, they're not as easy to get rid of, but there are a large number of phagocytic cells, like there are specific alveolar macrophages, which are in there waiting to gobble up microbes that make it that far. They'll ingest them and destroy them. They will also send out chemical signals to attract other cells from both the innate and the adaptive immune system. We also have chemical barriers. Things like the acidic pH of the stomach is lethal to most bacteria. Many of our cells secrete enzymes like lysozyme. So our tears, you might think of tears as being something for sadness, but they actually are helping protect against infection because they have this enzyme lysozyme in there, which will degrade the cell wall of bacteria. We also have little proteins called defensins, which are small little peptides, real small, 29 to 47 amino acids long, made by a bunch of different cells in the skin, lungs, gastrointestinal or genitourinary tract, and they'll kill microbes by destroying the cytoplasmic membrane. They'll work on many different types of things, even some viruses. There is also a system called complement that we will talk about a little bit later in this chapter, which joins the innate and the adaptive immune systems together, but it is a chemical component here. All right, so we have things like skin that form physical barriers. We have mucous membranes that have those Peyer's patches, like in the intestines, and phagocytic cells in there. They secrete enzymes. Chemical barriers, things like stomach acid and secreting enzymes. A lot of the innate system is recognizing common microbial-associated molecular patterns, or MAMPS, things like peptidoglycan, lipopolysaccharide. When they find those, macrophages go and attack them and release signals that say, hey, we've been infected. That will activate the innate in the adaptive systems. Okay, that's it for 15.2.